Good morning. I think I am. Yes, yes, yes. Good morning. Good morning. And uh, I'm here. I will tell you, some days are easier than others. I had a rough night. I was up at till midnight watching my dog. And because I watched one and not the other, I watched the little one that has come to stay with me. And the bigger one, who has been here all along since the beginning of the pandemic, got jealous and decided to show me that she was jealous. So it was like, it was a night to remember. So, yeah, good morning, fabulous Friday to you, Ruth. I'm so thankful for my little ones. I'm thankful for them and thankful for you, thankful for all of it. I can't help but say that enough. I am so very grateful and thankful. And so just got my meditation in this morning, even though I woke late, and did a little journaling, and just I have meetings outside of the house today, and just so much going on, but life is good, you know. I tell people that, you know, whatever you believe, life, whether you believe in God or spirit or the universal presence, whether you believe in laws, whether you believe in nothing, life has a highly individualized curriculum, highly individualized curriculum just for you. And you don't even have to go outside of your house or encounter another human being in order to have life lessons. I've been on this roll lately about mentioning movies, and Dr. Brown yesterday on our chat. Good morning, Shirley. Blessed morning to you as well. I had an opportunity to talk to Dr. Brown yesterday, and if y'all want to, you know, you can always share your experiences with me. I'm good with that. You know, I like to read these things. But, you know, I tell Dr. Brown that sometimes movies, the way that spirit deals with me, I used to see books when I was reading. I would literally see pages in books. It would just be like a flash in my mind. And I could go to my shelf and say, "Ooh, I know what book that is," based on how the page looked. Because, you know, when it flashed in my mind, I would see how I highlight the page, how I highlighted the page. And one of the things I do, I got highlighters, y'all. Yeah, you may not notice about me, but when I'm reading a book, I have all my highlighters out, whether it's green or yellow or pink or orange or whatever. I've got my highlighters. And so I sometimes remember pages of books based on how I've highlighted them. And sometimes I use I'm rarely consistent. If I look down and I'm rereading a book and I see that I highlighted in yellow, the next time I go and I read that same page, then I'm going to highlight in a different color, green or pink or something, some other color, so that I'll know that, like, this is my second reading, this is my third reading, or this is my fourth reading of this. And each time it may be different, and sometimes they overlap. So I would get these, like, you know, these things where I would see pages, and And then I go back to the page and turn the page and see what it had for me. But as I'm telling you about this highly individualized curriculum, what just flashed in my mind was another movie, that Tom Hanks movie that I think he won some awards for, where he was a castaway on an island. Like, he was a UPS driver, and I don't know how he ended up on this island, but it was just him, the sole survivor on this island. And if you watch, because this is real, right? If you watched, what you saw is he took a volleyball that he had and he made a face on there, and him and this volleyball would argue. You don't need somebody else to come into your house and give. So if you don't have somebody in the house with you, don't think that you have missed out on life's lessons, because it will use a dish rag to give you the lessons that you need to learn. I just think that is so amazing and so neat. So, I've got these 2 dogs here in the house, and, they teach me, right? I mean, everything. When you are open to learning, you will trip over lessons. You will trip over opportunities to come into your space and to show you something. You go to work and then you think that it's the people in your job, or you think it is people in your in the organizations, or you think that it's the people in the grocery store lines. Everybody is here to help with your evolutionary journey. Everybody. Literally everything is participating in your own evolutionary unfoldment. But sometimes you don't, right? Sometimes you can see it and just like, I ain't even gonna deal, right? I get that. It's like, I'd rather go over here, lay on the couch. This is what some people think, and just go to sleep. Or I know a guy who just goes home and drinks himself into a stupor because he doesn't want to deal with the drama that unfolds in his house. And some people will use drugs and alcohol to drown out the stuff that is in their heads that's going on, whether it is those 2 little things on your shoulder, one good and one bad, and one telling you this and another one telling you that. Whether it's to drown those out or to drown out your own thinking, you get what it is. And so you get what you need to evolve and to grow. And so you don't necessarily stop this process until and unless you learn the lesson. Once you learn the lesson, I will tell you, it's been my experience that mug circles around the corner and comes back at you to say, let's make sure you got this, right? I came to teach you this. Let's make sure you got it. And so it circles back around to see, and then sometimes it'll give you a refresher lesson in case you forgot, right? It is crazy the way it works, but it works. And so there's a part of us that just has to sit in gratitude. Like, let me get this the first time. As a matter of fact, I keep talking about yesterday when I was, when I gave that example of the surfers and the wave, right? Running out to meet it before it gets to me is one of the things that I try to do. I don't want to run. I don't want to be a coward. That's not the way that life shows up for me. So even in the places where I'm just looking at it like, ooh, this is going to hurt. I went to the dentist yesterday. And, I used to be, when I went to the doctor, it was traumatic. I mean, for many of us, I don't know that we start out wanting shots. I mean, to see a needle penetrate your skin and think about it going into you is like, it's not a pleasant thought. It's not a pleasant experience, right? I used to be so like, like, wait a minute, let me get myself together and blah, blah, blah. Right now, I am not like that. So I go to the dentist yesterday and, she's coming with this, with this needle. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, might as well just let it happen. Let do it, right? Not because a lot of times we build ourselves up into such a tizzy, raise our own blood pressure, all of that stuff. I want to be in the group that runs out and meets that doggone stuff. I am, so I don't know what that's all about or who that's for, where it came from. But, asking yourself, what does it mean to have courage is, to you, for you, right? And sometimes we only do stuff when we feel like we have no choice, like got no choice but to deal with this, got no choice but to have this conversation, got no choice but, and sometimes we wait till it gets so bad, right? Oh, got pains and this, that, and the other. That was not my case. That was not my case. I was going in there because I elected to go in there and get get this work done that I needed to do, and then without like giving a whole lot of thought to it. So you choose your battles. Good morning, Tracy. Good morning. Look, I'm since Tracy is here early, Tracy inspires this in me too. So I'm glad I inspire it in other people. Sometimes I tell you, it's so hard. It's so hard to have the conversation, the saying, even conversations in relationships. We get into relationships and there's supposed to be a level of intimacy, but then there is this fear and foreboding about telling the other person that you're not happy or you're not pleased and why, right? And sometimes we put more emotion into avoiding than we do into actually trying to say, dang, how can we sit down and talk about this? How can I help you to hear this without feeling that I'm rejecting you? How can we do, So there are so many things that we have to have courage for. Our coworkers, our boss even. We got to have it with our mates. We got to have them with our siblings. We got to have them with our parents. We got to have the tough conversations. We got to sign up for it and then be willing to have the tough conversations. I'm going to tell y'all this too. This just came up, flashed in my mind. When I was younger, after my mom had passed, I felt like I had a new perspective on death, like because Spirit worked with me all the way through her sickness. And she had cancer. She was diagnosed with cancer. I found out before she knew because I had a dream that she was going to pass. I could talk about that process, but that was just, I woke up crying and everything in me wanted to say no, no, no. But then it was like, yes, 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 this is going to happen. Right. And I remember, how we process is so different, right? How everybody processes so different. So first night I was just in fit. I was like, oh my gosh. I was in college and living in Akron. My mother was in Cleveland in the house where I grew up. My dad was there. Anyway, I had this dream and I remember waking up and just, just crazy crying. And I got up and I tried to meditate, and I'm gonna have a I'm gonna have all kind of stuff. I'm gonna have a whole ceremony trying to say that this cannot happen. This is not. And what prayer do I need? God, please, this can't be, right? Good morning, Everett. Great morning to you as well. And so I was praying about it, because I was like saying, this is what I'm working on. I was president of a student organization at the time, just as engaged as I am with everything that I do. So I was putting all of my energy into the student organization. I was working, all of these little things I had going on. I was juggling stuff when I had this dream. So I got out of bed and, did my meditation and, went through all of that stuff. And I was not getting any, I couldn't calm myself. I couldn't. And even as I meditated, I was like, it was just, just kept hitting me like, in this waves, like, girl, this is coming and you need to be prepared. So I remember pulling out, after I did all of that stuff, and then I couldn't get any rest or any peace. I remember going down stairs and looking for this book. It was called The Mythic Tarot. And I had a deck of tarot cards. I had to find both. And I shuffled them as I was praying. I was sitting in the middle of my bedroom floor, and I shuffled as I was praying. And I said, Lord, I just need a different answer. I need something else. I cut the deck. I did all of that stuff, and I picked up the card, and the first card that I picked up was death. And I thought, damn it. My dream, my meditation, my prayer, now this, death. And so I remember looking at this, and I looked down, and it says, there's all of this stuff on a deck of tarot cards. I don't know if you've ever studied it, but one of the things that I try not to do is to let people define and interpret things for me. Now, this may sound, it may sound like conflicted, or like this is like I'm doing two different things. So I look, a lot of times I make up stories about the things that I see. And I looked at this card and I sat there staring at it. And there's always a story behind each. So if a deck of tarot cards, you actually have to know Greek mythology in order to understand it. As a matter of fact, there's Egyptian cards too that you can get, and you have to know the Egyptian hieroglyphs in order to understand it. So I had read these before, but now that I was pulling this card, I was like thinking, like, what is this? And it says here, on an inner level, Hades, which is the Lord of Death, is an image of a permanent and final end of a cycle of life. And, through my tears, I remember thinking, like, darn it, what the what? God, how could you do this to me? I mean, that's literally where I was. And I think that that's kind of like where we take it personal. We take our losses personal. We think that somehow it is the universe doing something to us rather than for us. He says, when we change, a new attitude or a new circumstance may come, but the old way is dead and will never return in its original form. Now, usually we think of death as the death of someone. We think of death as a death of a body. But it said when we change, a new attitude or new circumstances may come. Surely there will be change when somebody's body dies, but sometimes there is change that happens within us. And the old us dies in order to make room for the new person that is trying to emerge. You could have been somebody who has lived in fear all your life. And then all of a sudden, I love that in the Bible, it says, there's these lines that says, then suddenly, right? I love that idea. Then suddenly, something changes. And you get a whole new attitude, whole new circumstances, something then, so that's the death of the old way. And then something new comes about. So for me, there are times when we encounter the darkness or the seeming darkness of death without also seeing that there is also a continuation of life. So we get upset when say my doctor retired. Remember, I'm like, who is this person that is now here, right? She didn't even give me maybe I thought that we was cool like that. We had a relationship, but she didn't tell me that she was retiring or that she was leaving. My favorite pharmacist, I go in there and like, where did he go? He retired. It's like, how do you do this to me? I could take it like that. Or to know that it is a natural process, that change occurs, and sometimes that change has absolutely nothing to do with you. But now that it is in your face, now that it is yours to deal with, now what? Right? I love that question. Now what? Right? So it says that the old way is dead and will never return in its original form. That happens with our relationships. Sometimes there's a line of demarcation. Sometimes it looks like divorce, but sometimes it looks like truth telling, right? And that old way now passes away. And now let's see what it is that's new. Sometimes we just, people can, like we do in our houses, we move the furniture around and say, this is new, right? Right? And think that somehow we don't fall back into old patterns, but we do. So here, let me go on. Thus, Haiti is a symbol of that finality which we experience with all endings, and also portrayed by the dark robe, a symbol of the experience of mourning, which is a necessary to prepare for the new cycle. I tell you, y'all, when I read this in my distress, it was it lifted me. Because one of the things that, there are those of us who, we wanted everything to happen and happen now. Be fixed and be fixed now. But if we took that mourning, the grieving of a loss as a necessary step in welcoming in the new, we would realize that everything needs that kind of rest, that retraction that I've been talking about that comes with fall as the season. The trees suck in their sap back towards their center. The leaves start, because they're not getting all the juice and all the goodness they were. The leaves start to fall. The rain and the wind participates in helping those things fall. Because if the leaves would not fall, or if they did not fall from the trees, how do you get new leaves when spring comes, right? And so why would we want that to, first off, it's a function. And so when we think about the things that happen in our life, there is going to be these periods of mourning that we have to let ourselves have in order to prepare for something new to come. Whoa, y'all, so I take this with ideas, I take it with relationships, I take it with people, I take it in so many different areas that there is a process to all endings, no matter what the ending is. Sometimes we don't realize, like even me, like there's this thing that sometimes we don't realize that an ending could be an ending to our own youth. I got to refresh this screen, y'all. So you might hear this talking over again. Sometimes there's an ending to our own youth that we don't want to accept. That we don't want to accept. So if we can't accept that my youth has ended and there is a different woman that's sitting in my seat now than the one that may have sat here, I don't know, some years ago. If I there's a part of me that has to be in a space of, I cannot retract. I cannot go back. None of that stuff. That part is over, is done, is ended. Now, here is where I find myself. And if I never get clear on the feelings that I had about the past, whatever those may be, then they continue to inform my present. And so this idea of mourning is something that all of us can learn how to practice on a daily basis. Who was it that says, I die daily, right? To any number of things. Sometimes it is a daily death that we are doing. And we've got to say, wow, you know what? Okay, that's over. Yes, it's over. we could do that whole thing and say, I guess it's over. Right? Sorry it had to end this way. But we knew it had to end someday. But now let me keep reading, because I got testimony in this. There's this thing, like, I don't know about you, but there's been so many times where things have we've held on too long. This friend of mine's, Walter, said to me, there was this song that he used to listen to back in the day. And he said that part of the refrain is that he stayed too long. He stayed too long at the fair. And I don't know if you guys have been like this, but sometimes we stay too long in situations. We stay too long at parties, right? Go to the club and everything is magical and everything is good. But if you stay until they start turning on the lights, you'll be thinking to yourself, like, what? What? You stay too long. You're not supposed to be there when the lights come on. You're not supposed to be there when the music is over and the DJ is. You were supposed to go when they said, when even before that time, you were supposed to be out the door. Because you don't want to be there when the magic stops happening, when the strobe light stops going. Sometimes we are so holding on, and without just saying, change happens. I will, when I reading this and dealing with this was so beautiful at the point that I did, because I'm already telling y'all, I'm sitting in the middle of my floor in that house that I had when I was in college, and I'm crying over this because I'm like, what, and honestly, they hadn't even diagnosed my mother at this point. This was my dream. And the dream was so vivid and so real. When I woke up, I was crying, I was praying, I had to do all of that stuff, just trying to settle myself. And so here I am sitting by myself reading this stuff. And so he says the dark robe is a symbol of the experience of mourning, which is necessary to prepare for a new cycle. In the card of the Hanged Man, he goes back to another thing. The Hanged Man is a different card. We encounter the experience of voluntary submission to the hidden laws of psyche. The decision to let go of something in hope of a new phase of life that it might emerge. To let go of something in hope that a new phase of life will emerge. Hades, the Lord of Death, represents that in-between state where we are brought face to face with the complete irrevocability of our loss. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you see what I'm saying? After the DJ saves your life, it's time to go. Last night a DJ saved my life. Yeah. So yeah, it's time to go, right? Sometimes, one of the things that they tell you when you go to casinos, the lights never come on, right? Or the magic, they try to keep it going so that they keep you locked in that thing. But there is a time, that song that says you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. It's so very true, right? But now, so this card says you're brought face to face with the complete irrevocability of our loss. There is not a time when you are going to be able to breathe life back into something. Before the sense of new growth, you got to accept that the loss is irrevocably so before the newness can then enter. Oh my God. So sometimes y'all think I'm talking to y'all, but I'm talking to me. This here is my lesson. This is my lesson. And I think a lot of times that I got it, but oh my gosh. So okay, here's another song. I don't even know how the song starts off, but I can see the thing. It's what is that woman's name? Vesta. And she's like, congratulations. I thought it would have been me standing here with you. Congratulations. I hope she makes you happy. You didn't even say goodbye. Right? That was Vesta. And she was saying, as long as I live, you'll always be the one for me. A lot of times we're hanging. We don't want to admit that we're hanging in limbo, but we're hanging in limbo. And so, there is a part of us that says, yeah, I've moved on, but surely in our moving on, that doesn't necessarily mean we've untied the links or untied what has us tethered to another person. So death is one way that is surely irrevocable, right? We could sit up and wish all day long that, that this wasn't so, that this wasn't happened, that they would come back. Sometimes we can look at that like, he's married now or she's married now and this is never to be again. But there's still this part sometimes. This death card is saying that nothing new can take root. Nothing new is going to grow as long as you are tethered to something that is past. And there is an irrevocability of bringing back, of resurrecting what is gone before. And so now here we stand. And the question is what do we do? Who is this for besides me? I mean, sometimes it's the job, for a long time, I've known people who mourn positions and mourn jobs, and somebody comes in and it seems like they just knock them out of their seat, right? It happens all the time, especially in politics, just somebody just knocks you out of your, and I wasn't done yet. Right. And so people will run for their old seat over and over again, will run for an office over and over again, or keep trying. There sometimes is this moment in time when we just got to stick a fork in it and say that it's done. Whew. And that's not always easy to do, especially not when we think that, or a mind that is thinking otherwise. So let me go on, because as a matter of fact, as I'm sitting here reading this, it's like this book was so amazing for me. It was so amazing for me to walk through these stories and to see what these stories had for me. And at the time when I was doing this, I wasn't necessarily, I've never been a person. No. Let me not tell that lie. I have taken classes, what I call psychic development classes, in different venues. And, but I have never been one who wants to read people. And let me explain that. I found out that it was something that I could do. But what happens is that in doing work like this, and this is no shade on anybody who does this or who goes to get readings or anything. This is no shade whatsoever, because I have been fascinated by it. But what I have found is that, life is for living in the now. And the moment we go and we seek assistance or guidance from another person, we take our power away from the centralized us, and then sometimes outsource our power to somebody who can guide us. It's like, we got to see through our own eyes and walk forward using our own eyes, our own intuition, our own abilities. If people get guide dogs, or people get, somebody standing over next to them to guide them along, but you have the power and the ability to move through life. And even when you find out that there is a deficit in one area, like say, for instance, you lose your sight, then you have other senses that will become heightened to help you through whatever it is you're going through. And so I have found that people will, when they think that you can give answers to them, they will quickly relinquish their power. And y'all know that is, I'm all about empowering people, not disempowering them. So even the idea that I'm going to carry part of your weight, or that I'm going to give you any more than some, okay, maybe go to the end of that block, turn left, turn right, this, that, and the other. Give you instructions. You still got to walk your path. I'm telling you how I got there. I'm just telling you, this is what I did, right? Not that you got to do the same, because you may have something different, but I'm giving you insight into the path that I've walked. I don't ever want it to be assumed that I am trying to, you know, let you, help you in bypassing the walk that you got to. It's like, I'm gonna get a surrogate to do some exercise for me or something. That don't work. You got to actually do it yourself, right? You got to mourn yourself. You've got to pray yourself. You got to do your own meditation. You got to do the conversations. You have to do it yourself. It's not somebody else's to do. And so sometimes people are looking for somebody else to help carry their load. And that, for me, was something that I didn't want to be. It just doesn't resonate with me. So yeah, I took some courses on this, but I choose not to, because I want to help. I want to help, but I don't want to do, I want you to still understand that, if I'm telling you that everything in nature speaks to you, if I'm telling you that a tree can speak to you, if I'm telling you a grasshopper can give you a message, or a bird or whatever, I need you to go and do the listening, not me to do it for you, right? And so that's sometimes what people get caught up in. How do I get, no, this is your work to do. This is your work to do. It's interesting when Jesus was like, he asked those folks to stand watch while he went and prayed, and he came back and they were asleep, and he was like, doggone it, y'all, right? But that was his prayer work. That was his to do. They was knocked out, sleeping and slumbering, no shade. Because I talked the other day, I think sometime last week, about that. When the sleeping is contagious, that you see somebody out in public and they yawn and everybody starts yawning. It's a contagious thing. It was like it's like a spell is cast over us. So the spell that I'm trying to cast is one of empowerment, of saying that you have been equipped with all that you need in order to traverse these life things, and death, and stand triumphant. Let me go ahead and I have not even done any of that other book this week, have I? Good morning, Samika. This reminds me of the story of the 5 wise and the 5 foolish virgins. You got to get your own oil. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, you do. And so, and that's the part sometimes that, is okay. So let me shift it, because something that else just came up. There's a lot of parents out here who overextend themselves or overreach for their kids. They call them helicopter parents now. They want to do all the work, all the heavy lifting for them. They want to have the conversations with the teachers. They want to, swoop in when little Johnny can't do something or can't cope or whatever. There is, like I'm saying, this idea of just, of getting somebody else to do our exercise or our work means that it's like the butterfly coming out of the cocoon. You're giving somebody, you're outsourcing the work that is yours to do, that grows you, that develops the spiritual musculature that you need in order to do what it is that you need to do. So get busy doing the work that is yours to do. So I found this whole thing when I was reading about this. It was so good. Let me read on, because I want to. I don't know that I've covered why this came up for me. But I want to, because this is so poignant, and I'm running short on time. The card of death, this goes on to say, the card of death does not necessarily symbolize a bad ending. It does not necessarily symbolize a bad ending. And, you know, some people might say, well, all endings are bad. And that's not necessarily so, right? Sometimes they're good endings. Woo. It seems like I just had something that happened that was a really good ending. To put a period in it and to move on. That I was so happy. I was so happy that it was over with. Yes, spiritual musculature. That's what I love that that term. The experience of irrevocable endings can accompany a joyful event and joyful events, such as a marriage or a birth of a child, right? Because you know that the single biggest change in a person's life is them having a baby. Your life is forever changed. New life, right? So he's saying that ending is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it is, I've been childless all this time, and now I got this. Sometimes people will kind of like say, "Ooh, now I got a new boss." Right? This little baby comes in the thing, and they look so cute and so sweet, and they, you know, cooing at you, and you looking, and your heart is open up. And all of this stuff in you, and this little person doesn't have the wherewithal to say, "I'm the captain now," right? They don't have the wherewithal to say that to you, but that's what it is. They can look at you and say, "I'm the captain now. This is my little finger wrapping yourself around it," right? Because I'm the captain now. That's what happens. And so it's the biggest life change ever. And a lot of times we go through, marriage, there's a lot of things that change, that signal a change, and it's not necessarily bad. But we think that death by nature is bad, and it's not. Okay, so he says, so he goes on to say, but these events not only connote a new, this print is so small. So y'all, I wish I could just but this is an old book with pages, so you just can't just spread your fingers across it and okay. But these events not only connote a new beginning, they also mean the death in an old way of life. That loss can be acknowledged and mourned, right? That's probably why it takes us 9 months to have a child, right? Because it takes you 9 months to get over the fact that, whoo, I can't, I ain't gonna be out partying like I was. I'm not gonna be doing this. I'm not gonna be doing that. Right? Some people never get it though. Thus we have a modern rituals such as stag parties, for people who are getting married, to acknowledge the loss of bachelor state. Women and men, for that matter, are often unaccountably depressed at the birth of a child because it has not yet been acknowledged that that phase of life has died, and at the same time a new thing has been born. Thus the coin must be paid to Hades, because he presides over all endings and new beginnings. This is so good. And the ending is as important as the beginning and must be recognized and felt. Ooh. sometimes people will, when somebody dies, somebody will sit there and say, oh, I've been waiting on you to have that breakdown. I've been waiting on you to cry. I've been waiting on you to, people will sit up and when they want to watch how you move through things. Because it's a part of the process, and sometimes it doesn't come immediately. But the other part of that is that sometimes people don't see you doing it. So let me go back to my dream. I dreamt my mother died. I had some dark nights of the soul prior to my mother ever being diagnosed. So when she called and asked me and my brother to come home one Sunday, we drove, and, I was going to Akron U at the time. We drove back to the house. And even before we got in the house, my mother hugs, we doing all the same things. We ate dinner. I knew the whole time what was coming up. Here's what I didn't know. I didn't know if she was going to fall dead, like on a spot, or if this was going to be a long-term commitment. But I knew that she was going to pass. And it's a different thing when you walk into a space with somebody that you know is going to pass because you've already seen it. So I walked in, and, when she, we went through dinner, we cleaned up the dishes, and then she, her and my father, they wanted us to all come in there and sit around the table. And then she dropped us the news, I've got cancer. That's what she said. And everybody else is, oh my God, and starting to cry and everything else. And I was like, okay. I was at the point at that moment, I said, okay, let's roll up our sleeves. We got a fight on our hands. That's what I said to them. I said, we got a fight on our hands. Now, that was the way I approached it on that day and all the way through her experience of that. But never did I think that I was ever, no matter what we did. That was the first time I went vegetarian, because I asked the doctor, I was like, what can we do to slow this down? And he says, you need to change, she needs to change her eating habits, and he started to talk about, not stop eating meat and stop eating this and stop eating that, and I was like, all right, let's do it. And I gave up meat. That went cold turkey. And I was like, Mom, whatever you do, I'm doing, right? If you lose your hair, I'm doing that too, right? It was step for step. That was the way I chose to be with my mother, because I knew that I had those dreams and I had been prepared, because I was supposed to usher her where she needed to go. A lot of times what happens for people is that we're sitting up and we're so busy crying about, this impending doom and all of this stuff. I was not going to change the outcome. But what I could choose to do was, I'm going to do like the Flintstones in the car. I'm going to put my feet on the ground. I'm going to become grounded, and I'm going to give resistance, but I know I'm not going to change the outcome. So when we recognize that there is something coming, I don't know what that might be for anybody else. I know for me, sometimes it is, any number of things it can be. And I want to have the courage to run out and meet it. I want to have the courage to say, you know what, this may be what's to come, but it ain't going to be easy, right? Whatever that is, courage to deal with it. So this book says that, you know, he presides over all endings and new beginnings, and the ending is as important as the beginning and must be recognized and felt. Feel it. Feel it. I think I will. I'm going to stop there because there's a bit more of this to go, and I think I'm going to stop there with that. Y'all, I don't know. I know that this is not probably people's cup of tea, but there is some amazing lessons in this book that might serve me well to share. So I'm going to be considering this. I haven't found from the books that I've received, the recommendations that I've received so far, I haven't found anything that resonated with me. So, who's to say? Who's to say? Let me let this marinate for a minute, because there was a reason why this came up for me. Anyway, consider this. Consider this when you are thinking about the things that you've been holding on to. I remember one time, and y'all know that I fancy myself intuitive. And I remember one time, I don't know if it was a relationship I was in or what, but sometimes it is, you remember the message more than you do the situation that it was in. And I had this vision that I was trying to have mouth-to-mouth resuscitation with a skeleton, something that was dead and gone, that was no more. And no matter how much effort I put in trying to blow air into it, it was not going to be resurrected. Not gonna happen. So I realized that there are some things that we need to call it. We need to say, that's done, it's over, and move the heck on. Getting to that point is not always easy. It takes courage. It does. All right, y'all. I hope this blessed you. You know what I like to say. If this blessed you, share it. You can drop some change on my Cash App thing. Sandra Said It. I'm on Zelle at sandrasaidit@gmail. I'm on PayPal at PayPal/me. Or .me/Sandra Said It. Anywhere you go, Sandra Said It, because I said it. I appreciate y'all being here. I've got, like I said, I got a couple of meetings today that I got to get myself together for. And I'm hoping that you have a fabulous day. I will be here tomorrow. That's my plan. Shirley, hey, I'll be here tomorrow. That's my plan, and see what comes up and what comes out. I am so grateful for your presence. I'm grateful for your energy and all of those good things. I will see you tomorrow, and I hope you have an amazing, fabulous Friday. All right. Talk to you later.